Hello there everybody, Tim today, and we are doing another YouTube lesson. Of course, what else will we do? But today we are doing a note reading lesson. This is a one of 4 parts. The other 3 parts actually will be put on my website, lessonsontheweb.com. So if you like what you see, head over there and join my academy where you will gain access to a ton more content. But another question that may be in your mind is, well Tim, didn't you do a lesson on this a long time ago? Well, that's true. I did it when I did some note reading lessons. My first few lessons I put out way back, in 2013, over 2 years ago. It's almost 2.5 years. Actually, I can't believe it's been this long. But since then, I've learned a thing or two about making online videos, instructional videos, and I have some new technology. And I also feel like there were some things that I forgot to mention or just didn't mention. And those first few videos that I will mention in this series of videos, but keep in mind that this is only one of 4 parts. The other 3 parts will be a part of the academy for those students. So what are we doing today exactly? Well, we are going over how to read notes for the treble clef. So we'll go over the lines and spaces just like before, and then we're going to do some practice at the end of the lesson, and then part 2 I'm going to show you how to read the ledger lines, which is really where the extra explanation comes in. I may put that part out on YouTube eventually, but not right away. So today it's just reading notes on the treble clef without the ledger lines. As you know, you need ledger lines to read notes high up or low on the staff, which we'll cover in parts 2, 3, and 4. But part 1 today is just notes on the staff for the treble clef. So let me show you. I have a new device I can show things with, so you can look forward to that. Again, you can get the other parts to this on lessonsontheweb.com as part of my academy, along with a ton of other videos. But let's not waste any more time. Let's just get started and let's get learning. Okay, students, so as I mentioned in the intro, we are doing a note reading lesson today. If you've been following me for a while, you probably know that I made one of these way back 2 years ago in 2013 when I first started the Lessons on the Web YouTube channel. Now this is a 1-part lesson of a total 4 parts. The other 3 parts you can find on my website, lessonsontheweb.com, as part of my Lessons on the Web Academy. So head over there if you're interested in that and you want to take a look. But anyway, let's not waste any time. Let's get on to what we're talking about today, which is reading notes for the treble clef. So what is the treble clef? So we have something very important here you may have seen before. Should look familiar unless you're really brand new, and that's okay. So here we have what we call the staffs, and I'm going to highlight the staff by double tapping on it. So it's highlighted in blue now. You see how it's made of 5 lines. Made of 5 lines. Here we go. Trying to zoom in a little bit. 5 lines, and there's actually 4 spaces in between those lines. So here are the 5 lines. So there, I've marked the 5 lines. This one could be a little bit better. Notice how each line is going right through each of the little markers that I have, indicating each 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, of course. Now we also have the 4 spaces in between those lines. And I'll show you what that's like in a second. So here we go. Here are the spaces. I'm going to draw a line between each space. As you can see this time, the line doesn't go straight through the little marker I made. It's directly in between the lines. So that's a space if it's directly in between the line. If the note is on a line, then the line is going directly through it like this. Just like that. Alright, so let me erase these and let me show you, or tell you something else rather. So this is important to know, these lines and spaces, mainly because depending on which line or space a note falls on the staff tells you basically what letter note it is, but also where on the piano that note is located. So if you've seen some of my earlier videos, you probably know how to find middle C, especially if you've seen my ultimate guide, ultimate starter's guide for your first, I think it's called First Piano Lesson, the Ultimate Starter's Guide, something like that. Look for that video and it'll show you where middle C is. But if you haven't seen that, I'll tell you right now, You find middle C by playing the 2 black keys right here. This is actually the middle of the piano. And then you go down into the left, and that's your middle C. You always know which one C is in the middle. If you have a full-sized 88 keyboard, 88 key keyboard is the 4th C on the piano, also known as C4. And then if you have a smaller piano, it might not be the 4th C, but it's always the C that's right in front of like whatever's in the middle of your piano. So if you have like an LCD screen, it's probably right near that, or if you have a maker's mark, it tells you what the name of the piano is, it'll be right there. So that's how you find middle C, and then you find the other notes by going up and down from there. So you have D, E, F, G, and then if you go backwards, B, A, G, F. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, make sure to check out that other video. I don't want to spend too much time on this since I have covered it already. So, like I said, depending on which line or space on the staff, tells you what note to play and where on the keyboard to play that note. So the treble clef, as I have mentioned, is right here. It's also known as the G clef. A lot of people think it's because it looks like a G, and that may be true, but it's actually because the note G is right in the middle where that intersects. I've highlighted it there for you. So that's the treble clef. That's all we're talking about today. We're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about the bass clef either down here. So we're not talking about all that. We're just talking about the treble clef, which I've circled, and I'll get rid of all this other stuff just so we have a clear place to work with. So anyway, let me show you something. So the way I teach this is that if you want to learn how to read music fast, you should memorize the lines and spaces of the treble clef. So the lines of the treble clef, when you do this, this is absolutely important that you go from the bottom line to the top line like this. Oh, forgot to change the pen back. Here we go. So here, I've drawn a little dash on each line. Now let me turn these into notes. This is where it might get pretty interesting. I don't know if you've seen something like this before. Boom! It turned them into notes by clicking out of it. A little piece of software I have. So anyways, these are the notes of what we call the lines of the treble clef, and you can tell they're on a line like I mentioned before because the line goes straight through that note. So if you want to memorize the lines of the treble clef, remember that it goes from the bottom up to the top. So here's what I mean. Here's the bottom note going up to the top. Now let me explain. So the first line is E. The next line up is G. The next one up is B. The next one up is D. And the final one is F. So you can either, if you're good at memorizing, you could just memorize from the bottom to the top. It's E, G, B, D, and finally F. Or you can associate a little saying that goes along with it. One of the sayings that almost everybody knows, or a lot of people learn anyways, every good boy deserves either fries or fudge. So long as you're saying the beginning letter of each of those words lines up with E, G, B, D, F, you should be good to go. So E for every, G for good, B for boy, D for deserves, and F for fudge at the top. Remember to go from the bottom to the top. If you do it the other way, it's not going to be correct. Now let's practice over here. Let me write in some notes for us, and we'll see what they are. So I'm going to write in our first note here, getting rid of that rest. We don't need it. So this note, take a look, is on the first line of the treble clef on the very bottom. So what was that first word that we came up with, or what was the first letter? Well, it was every, right? And what letter does every begin with? It begins with an E. So our answer here is going to be, of course, E. That is the note E. And actually, if you want to know where that is on the piano, you find middle C right here, and you go to the E right above where that is. And there's your E. That's the E right there. So if you ever see that, that's where it is on the piano, and that's what letter it is. Let's do another one. Actually, I can do it without even redrawing them. I can just place it here and move it up. Let me move it up to a line that was clearly on a space. So now we have it on this fourth line up. Remember that our saying should go from the bottom to the top to get it right. So the first line's E for every, G for good, B for boy, and the last one is going to be what letter? It's going to be, let's take a look, D for deserves. Moving it right over there. So that note is going to be D. And this D, if you notice that our example from last time was this E right here, and that E was right there on the keyboard. Well, this next D, let me move this back up where it should be, right here, is going to be, since it's up, see how it was up on the staff, I moved that up? Well, it also means we're going to go up this way on the keyboard. Up usually means you're going higher in pitch, and down on the keyboard means you're usually going lower in pitch. So this will be a D up in this direction. So it's really the first D that we encounter up this way. So this D is going to be right here. It's actually going to be, if you go to middle C, and you go to 1C, one octave above that, we call that, and you go to the very next note, that's where our D is going to be. Now, let's go to another example, of course. And that is going to be this one. So third line up, well, hopefully you know the saying by now. If not, keep practicing it. Every, so the bottom is every, good, and then B for boy. So that's going to be a B. So remember that this bottom line, E, is right here. Then the next note up is going to be one note up there. That's F. Let's go all the way up to, there's G. Two more. Here's A, going up one note. So as I go up to the next line or space in the staff, I also go one note up on the keyboard, and then we have to go one more note to get to our final note that we started on, or the example was based on rather, which is B, which is right here. So that's how you can figure some of them out. You can find that first E right above middle C and count up from there, or count down as well, as you will see you will need to do later on. So going through this, let's do two more, although we've done most of them. What is this second line? That's a G, right? So if this E right here is right here, then this G is going to be right there. Okay, now what we have to do is I'll draw it over here. Let's do this. Now we're going to do the spaces of the treble clef. So this is a little bit easier even than what we did. Let me draw some lines on the spaces really quick. Okay, didn't like that last one. You have to be a little bit careful, but it does work pretty well most of the time. So anyway, there is our spaces of the treble clef. What did you notice about this? We're actually going from the always bottom to the top. So we're doing the same thing as before. We're going from the bottom to the top. If you do it the other way, it will not work out so well. So anyway, the first space is going to be F. And this F, by the way, is going to be the first F above middle C, right there. Next you have A. And next you have C, and the final one is E. Well, we don't really need a saying for this. I mean, you can certainly come up with one so long as the first letter of each word matches up with these. But it spells a word on its own, right? It spells face altogether. So that makes it kind of easy. Just remember how to spell face, and when you remember the most important thing is going from the bottom space to the top space, and remember that a note is on a space because there's two lines around it. There's not a line that intersects it through the middle. Okay, now let's practice like we were talking about. Let's go here. Let me draw a note. Let me move this little playback line here. And there we go. So there's our first note. Let's try to figure out, let me move it over here. Let's try to figure out what note this is. So this is on the first space of the treble clef. Now, what letter in face is that? Remember that we're trying to spell face, F-A-C-E. Well, it's the first letter, so this is going to be an F. Now, where is that F on the keyboard? Well, remember that bottom line E right here was right here. This F is going to be one note above that. So hopefully you're catching on so far. If not, leave me a message in the comments or email me, and I'll try to get back to you. So that's F. Let's move on to another one, perhaps. Wrong pen on that one. Let's see. Here we go. There we go. Top space. So that's the last letter in face, right? Because you got the first space here, F, A, F, C, and then E would be right in between there. So that's E right there. And that E, by the way, where is that E on the keyboard? Well, remember that the bottom line, this is the one I always go to for reference, it seems, is going to be right here, right there. So it's going to be right there on the keyboard, right? Well, we had this E up here. I keep switching to the wrong one. Here we go. We go to this E up here. Well, it can't be that E, right? Because that E is already taken. So it's actually, since we moved up in that direction on the staff, we moved up on the staff, we're going to move this way on the keyboard. So it's going to be this E. Okay, let's go to another one. Let's go to that one. What note is that? Well, hopefully you said C, since that's the third letter in the word face. So that C isn't middle C, by the way. I should tell you that right now. If you notice, it's actually, here was our E that I was telling you about before. Maybe I should just draw them like that. Let me draw a little bigger so you can see what I'm saying. There we go. So that was our E before, right? And now this is C, as you can see, is higher up on the staff than that E before. So we're going to be going this way. And that C, by the way, is right there. Okay, see what we got? Let's test you for real now. We're going to go over the lines or the spaces for the treble clef, and we're going to see how we do. So we're going to do a few as this part of the lesson, and then we are going to leave the second part of the lesson for way more practice on this so you can really master it. So anyway, here is the first one. Let me draw it this way. How about there? Well, what note is that? Think about it. That is, hopefully you said D, because we have every good boy, and then this one is D for deserves, which is where we are on that line. Okay, two more, and then we'll leave it for the part two. What about right there? Well, that is, hopefully you said F. Yep, that would be correct. Hopefully you did anyway. And to find this one on the keyboard is, if you keep in mind, again, our point of reference is here. This E right here, and we know where that is by now. It's right there. Now this F is quite a way up from that E, right? And we're definitely heading in this direction because the note we're going to is higher up on the staff. So if you go here, we have E. The next one is F, that space there. Next one's G, A on that space, B, C, D. So I'm just showing you all the notes in between here. And then finally where we are, F. So there we go. So that's the note where we want to get to. So we start from this E right here. I should point to that from there. So we go from E, we count up 1 to F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and then this last one, F. So that's where we are on the keyboard. So in the beginning, you might have to count up from where you are to figure out exactly where it is. And then over time, you'll just memorize where each of these notes is located. It may not seem like it at first, but you will start to catch on. It'll become much easier. Okay, So covered in part 2 of this video is more practice with these. I'm also going to give you a link to a place where you can practice these on your own. By the way, this is a called my words today. By the way, this program is called StaffPad that I used to write on, but it's really a better teaching tool than it is a learning tool, or if you're good at writing music, it's good for that. But anyways, part 2 of this video is going to cover more of this, but part 3 and 4 will cover the bass clef. So if you really want to learn, or at least master reading music, go on to parts 3 and 4. And there may even actually be more parts after that, because we do have to talk about ledger lines and other types of notes as well. So look forward to, well, I guess part 2, 3, and 4 are all coming out on my website, not YouTube. Will not come out on YouTube. Especially parts 3 and 4, and part 2 will probably not come out on YouTube at least anytime soon. So you'll have to go over to my academy to get those. So if you're interested in that, go over to lessonsontheweb.com. So anyway, I hope you found this video enriching, and if you'd like to see more, like I said, head over to my website. If not, stay tuned. Some more lessons are on the way. I'm mainly going to be doing a lot of redos of some of my older lessons, so look forward to that. So anyway, thanks as always for listening, and I'll see you for the next lesson. Thanks a lot.